My name's Stephen Hosking. I work for Microsoft in the CAT team. Let me quickly go into the introduction slide. I'm Stephen, as you can see. I also do this series you may have heard of called Intune training on YouTube, and you can find me on the interwebs at On-Prem Cloud Guy. So you see a lot of acronyms here being CMS, CAT, PM. Does anybody know what CMS stands for?
Content management system?
No. It's not content management system. So it's cloud managed services. So think of things like, can't see the slides.
So we're online. They're seeing you, not your slides.
I'm not in the meeting.
Oh, you hit the share button on the thing on your right.
The share button.
You're there. I think for Microsoft. I think you do it from your computer. Well,
There we go. Hang on. I think we figured it out.
there we go.
Can we get confirmation?
Looks good. I see it. Got red line around. It looks good.
Awesome. Cool. So CMS stands for Cloud Managed Services. Think things like Windows Auto Patch and what was Microsoft Managed Desktop. But let's see. MMD's been end of life, so we're public about that. And we've already got a hand up from Jeff. Do you want to ask a question, or is it just that we're not presenting?
Everything was good now.
Cool. I'm going to continue on. Not a problem. So yeah, I'm now focused on Windows Commercial. So if you have Windows Commercial issues, and everybody's in the enterprise or education, so you are a Windows Commercial customer, ping me. Let me know any issues you're facing. I'm really very interested. So that's about me. As you can see, I had a secondary speaker at MMS, but they're not here this week, so we're just going to wing it and do it as a Steve show. We've got a really simple agenda. I like going through with these sort of sessions and setting out the agenda. So we're going to do a high-level design, then we're going to do a demo, and then we're going to have some logic at insights. These are the things I learned to try and help you so you don't run into these issues. So let's quickly step into our high-level design. And I didn't actually fix this after MMS. I should have, although I probably should have fixed it before MMS. It says Intune here. It's a bit small font. Sorry, Greg. But how many people today are using log analytics to capture all of their data from the Intune diagnostic settings? How much is it costing you? How?
I read a thing from Nathan McNulty telling me how to do it, and there was a free thing of up to 5 gigabytes a day or something like that.
That's the only way you'll get it for free. How much is it costing you?
I haven't got a bill right now.
It's either 0 or 10.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm asking is log analytics, you're paying to store your data for multiple months or however long you say you want to store that data for. So it gets very expensive very quickly. And then typically what we see is customers using Azure functions to do automation on that, right? So you sit there and you go, log analytics, I don't have a predictable cost associated to that. How many times when you go to your business manager, your leadership and go, I want to put in log analytics and I don't know how much it's going to cost me. They're going to go, good luck. How do I budget for this? How do I plan for this? So one of the options you can now start looking at is event hubs. So has anybody ever heard of event hubs other than seeing it in the Azure portal? Has anybody actually turned it on and used it? It's actually pretty cool, and we will do some demos on it because it's a lot of fun. But why event hubs is so awesome in this scenario, it's got a dollar sign, but only one. Because the monthly cost is less than one of those pizzas. It's $11.83 a month. That's on our recommended sites. That's what I'm paying in my lab. When you get up to 100,000, it increases to $11.85. Do you think you'll be able to get that one across the line for your leadership for budgeting? I think it's a little bit easier, right? It's a very fixed cost. You know how much it's going to cost. If it's not processing fast enough, it grows at that increment. You just add an extra throughput unit and it increases the cost. Great. And then we talk about logic apps. Well, logic apps are fantastic. How many people have played with logic apps? We've got a few, cool. How many people have played with Flow or Power Automate? This is the big boy version of that. It's the real version that you want to use. It's better. I'm going to put it that way. Does it cost a little bit more? Yes. But in my environment, I'm still costing me less than those pieces, right? It's that cheap. And you can build it on consumption, or you can sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to go big boy, and it's going to cost me about $600 a month. So from a costing point of view, I can sit there and I have the predictive costing. So this is what I've sold you on, right? Ooh, magic. So let's see what the next slide is. Oh, demo. Everybody loves demos, right? Let's go and do demos. All right, so I'm going to jump across, and somehow I've gotten a random wrong side. All right, we'll fix that up. So just bear with me. I'm just going to quickly load up my Intune portal because I didn't load that up because I hit the wrong link. Everybody knows you can hit aka.ms/IN as the shortcut to the Intune portal now.
EN?
No, because it's intune.microsoft.com now. We don't talk about endpoint management. So here is my trusty tenant. What I've got set up in here, and I'm just going to quickly show you, and let me know if it's a little bit too small font or anything like that. I think it should be big enough. We can go to tenant administration. Under tenant administration, what we have in here is diagnostic settings. So how many people have looked at diagnostic settings? Very cool. Diagnostic settings allows you to dump out what's going on in your environment. Whether it is devices being registered, whether it is people making changes in your tenant, it is a lot of fun. It's brilliant. It's interesting. So what I've set up here, I'm not going to go through the full setup end to end because we're going to spend a bit more time in Event Hub and Logic Apps because it's actually cool stuff. And this is a little bit boring because it's literally we go in and go, oh, we're just going to add I'm just going to edit it, and we just go in here and we tick the box and we just go pick our subscription, pick our pre-created event hub, and then we leave this as blank. So it goes and automatically creates everything for you, and it will send all of that diagnostic data across. Fantastic. We have the diagnostic data coming into our tenant. We also then have all of these different options here. So let's play a little bit of fun here. What do we reckon the audit logs are going to do? Anybody?
Shows changes to Intune?
Yep, changes to Intune, but we've also got operational logs. What do you think the operational logs are going to do?
Shows what Intune actually did?
No, sort of. This is going to show you when people register devices into your tenant and when there's processes around that occurring. Device compliance org. That sounds really useful, right? I can sit there and I can tap into that and pull out all of my device compliance. Yeah, no. Gives you it once a day. So it's not going to be able, so it's not something you can tap into and just go, give me the status of my devices and see what the compliance is. No, that's once a day you get a dump of this is what's going on. Devices, much the same. The Windows 365 audit log, recently been added. I haven't had time to play around with it because I don't have Windows 365 in this environment because I didn't get the licenses because I forgot to tick the box.
I've just written a blog post on that one.
Arish has written a blog post on it. Make sure you check it out. He will put it in the chat. I've committed you to do something now. Where's the laptop? All right. So this is super new, but it's going to give you a lot of the audit information of what's going on in Windows 365 and everything associated. So that's pretty powerful as well. What we're doing on the Azure side, because this is scary Azure stuff, it's not Intune anymore, we're going to the Azure portal. We're allowed to go back in there now. What we've created in here is we've got a resource group, and it's got additional stuff in there that's probably not necessary anymore, but we'll not worry about it. And it's going to take a little bit to load, even though I'm in the Microsoft network. All right, so what we've got in here, let's start off at the simple level. We have these event hubs. So these event hubs are where they're going to capture data coming from those audit logs or the diagnostic settings. So event hubs are designed to hold the data until somebody comes and picks it up and processes that data. So that's why there is so much cheaper than running log analytics. We're not saying don't use log analytics, but what we can do with this and putting a logic app in front of it or between it is you can dump it into your event hub and then process it and only grab the items that you want and put that into your log analytics. So then you're not paying for all of that storage and you can keep under the 5 gig limit. Everybody wants to do that because it keeps their leadership happy. That's my experience anyway. So what we've got in here is I've set up some interesting stuff because I like to tinker. But you'll notice I've got more than just my Intune logs in here. You see these things called advanced hunting. Anybody want to guess what those advanced hunting items are from? Vendor? Correct. Why am I calling this out is because you have the ability to connect into diagnostic settings, not just from Intune, but from Azure Active Directory, Entra ID, Defender for Cloud or Defender security.microsoft.com and everything associated around that. You also have the ability to capture all the diagnostic settings from Azure as well. So you can literally have Event Hub go and dump data back into itself. But anyway, the reason why I'm calling that out is because this is where you can then go and link those into multiple workflows and go and capture data from Intune to do action on Entra ID to do action on security or do it triggering or any of those scenarios. And then that's what this session's about. I know I'm getting 20 minutes in and I'm sitting here and saying, well, this is an inspirational session. We want you to be inspired to go, hey, this is actually really cool and easy. It kind of is. It's kind of frustrating as well, but we'll get into that in a sec. We're looking at the fun stuff at the moment. So we now have our Event Hub, and straightforward, this is literally the cheapest option you can choose. I actually have zone redundancy. I'm impressed. It shouldn't. But we've gone the basic and it's costing us $11. And I can show you that just to prove that I'm not sitting here and saying that I am spending money that I'm not, because I like demoing properly. Oh, hang on. Our forecast is $41. Sorry. That's because I'm running 2 event hubs. If I was running 1, it would be still at that $25. Nice, right? Cool. All right, let's go back. Let's go over here to our plane. So, Logic App. So we've gone and created it. We're going in here and it's running. Cool. What we have is the ability to see who's making changes in my environment. That looks pretty simple, right? Like you all could do that without any concern. But then we can go expand it out and expand it out and expand it out and expand it out. And it gets a little bit bigger. So what we're actually doing here, and I'm over engineering the solution because I do that. I like to tinker and I like to play. So at the top level, what we've done is we've connected to the Intune or Insights logs, audit logs, which is the Intune audit logs. And we're saying that it's going to come in with an application type of JSON. And you can sit there and say your maximum event counts. So this was actually a question that I had at MMS, where they're like, well, you've got that set to 50, Steve. What's the maximum we can put in there? And I went, let's find out. And we didn't actually hit it. So that's what, 5 million? So every 3 minutes we're checking to see if there's 5 million records there. Do you think you're going to have 5 million records in 3 minutes? I hope you don't. Unless you're doing some crazy automation that's sitting there and just trying to hit our throttling for giggles. And then please don't. Obviously, you can check as often as you want. By default, it's 3 minutes, which I think is pretty good. What that means is if somebody's making a change in your environment, typically within 5 minutes, you can send them an email going, why are you making this change? Why did you delete this? But also you can start sitting there and capturing the changes that have occurred in your environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over here to my run histories. In my run histories, I can go and look at real data that we've processed. The reason why we have to go to run history is because we can't we can't go and get the data from the data set and rerun it like we would with a SQL query. We have to go and look at the history of what we've previously ran. Logic, right? So what's actually the data that we get in? Let's have a quick look. We're going to go show output. What did I do here? Ooh, we got to deny. Oh, okay. Thank you, Arish. So what you can see here is somebody created a device management configuration policy. Someone, it's me, because. Oh, actually, no, it wasn't me. It was Sandy. There we go. Sandy made changes in my environment. That's better send Sandy an email. Sandy was my co-presenter at MMS. But we can see here when it occurred, who made the change. Up the top, we can see what it was. Importantly, and this one here I think is pretty cool, but it's understated. Does anybody know what this is actually telling us? The application name? That's telling us the AAD application that was used for the process to be executed. So if they're sitting there and using an API or a custom scripted process, we can see that it's coming from that custom scripted process. So if we take that the other way and go, all right, I'm going to allow you to make changes to my tenant, but it has to be via my CI/CD pipeline. It has to be published in JSON, in my Azure repo or GitHub repo. We've captured that. It's going to run with application blood. If you make changes not using that endpoint, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to go, hang on, you breached change of control. There's your first warning. Or please explain why we're not giving you a warning. So this is where you can start putting some controls around how, why, and what's happening in your environment. You can see here all of the information. So we've kept it very simple. The name's Hello MMS, yay. And in here, it's going through and setting in a very simple settings. Let's go and have a look over in the Intune portal at what that's doing. I can't remember. Really, here's the tenant I had before. So if we go in here and we go to Windows, I assume it's Windows configuration. And there's the policy that was created. And we can see all of those settings and configurations that are there, which is very simple. We're saying above log screen, we're going to allow toast. So if we then go and look up the target objects IDs, that's going to be the policy that was created so that you can then say, I'm going to export that configuration and save it somewhere else. So then I have version controlling as well. I can sit there and say, well, cool, we did a change control or change, and this was approved, but I'm not going to worry about documenting. I'm just going to automatically let it document it for me. And I'll just go and put it into the change management system if this is what we changed. So if you need to revert it, you can just go unrevert. Other than deleting certificates, that's irreversible. Just putting it out there. You do get that notification, but deleting that Apple push notification certificate, that's just plan to go on holidays the week after, because they're not going to want you in the office. Cool. So that's pretty straightforward for what we're doing around the data. But then we can go in here and we have these category types. So what we're saying with these categories is we're wanting to know what are the categories of the data that we can associate with the output. So audit log has a great amount of information and it's reasonably well documented, and it provides you the ability to go in and hit these endpoints and see what you're actually expecting to see messages for. So these are all of the different categories that you're going to see messages from the audit log information. Why is that important? Well, everybody wants to know that you're going to see information on your ebook management, right? Like that's the most important one in the list. No, not really, but I was expecting a lot. But things like endpoint privilege management, I can then know that I'm going to get a message around endpoint privilege management when people make changes or do action on that. And I can then go and build a workflow from that. So you hit this endpoint and you go, oh, what's there? Does it exist? I can dynamically create those rules and do different tasks based upon those endpoints. That's cool, but it's not telling me whether I can create or delete or anything like that, right? It's just telling me that it exists. Well, yeah, but we can then go and look at what are the actual tasks that go on for each of those endpoints. So for this one here, we're sitting and saying, well, for other, we have the ability to patch admin consent and patch data processor service for Windows features onboarding. That's pretty boring. But we have all of these other ones here. So let's go and select number 20. Whoop. Don't mind me. So what you'll see here is if we scroll to the end, endpoint privilege management, what can we see for that? Nothing. That's not nice. Wow. I haven't published it all that well, have they? So your device assignment, that's not the one I wanted. It's like 15. Which one's got the interesting parts? Number 4.
It'll be in the last place you're gonna look.
Of course, always. Of course.
So just start
Keep looking after.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep looking after it.
It's always last place, like you never, you don't keep looking after the fact.
Exactly. So here's the output for, what was it? Enrollment. Enrollment's actually pretty cool, and there's some cool stuff that we can do on the operations string for that. But you can see all the different options for enrollment here. So it handles all of the Android information, the Apple information, the Windows information, and we can track who registered that Windows Autopilot device in your environment. Like, how many times have you sat there and went, where did this computer come from? It's a Hyper-V device. Where did it come from? So here you go. We can tell you now. Going forward, not retrospectively, unless you've already got logo leaks. But anyway, so this is where you can start putting in those controls to understand what's going on in your environment and having full visibility, because that's important to everybody. Because I don't know about you, but I want to know when people make changes in my environment. Yeah. From there, we can step through and we can send an email. So this one's super simple because I'm not going to go through and find the one that's successful because there's a lot. What we're saying is we're going to send an email if it matches a true result. What's the true result? Let's have a look at what our condition was. If we go back to blame, designer, what I do recommend is have 2 browsers open so you can look at them side by side, but I haven't done that, so let's just continue on. If we continue on down here, we've got our for each condition. So what we're saying is if I can't even see what that is. Okay. Let's go and look at the, oh, and thing to know is what we have is a preview designer. Does it work? Yes, sort of. It sort of works, it's good, it makes it look prettier, easier to read, but sometimes it gets confused and doesn't do what you expect it to. So this is where we can look at our condition and we're saying current item, if it equals the operation name. So we're saying we want to see the operation name equals to this to do action. So in this scenario, we're saying, well, if it equals, it's basically stepping through everything and comparing. If it's in the list of approved items, go and send an email. So it's always going to send an email. It just depends on the stream. And there's like 200 streams. So let's not go and try and figure out which one's that. But what we're doing is we're then sending an email saying, hey, you just did this. Simple, right? You just made this change. But we can then expand that out and go, all right, before we grab that, we just go and add a task in here that's an HTTPS call that goes up and looks up the record that they just created, if it's a create, and go, hey, this is what you just created. Why did you do it? Do you have approval for this? Because you can then turn around after the fact and put an option on this email and say, all right, did you have approval for this? What's the change request number because you didn't include it in the description? Or you can build business processes around how to make sure that you are successful and not running into issues because you've got 20 people in your tenant making random changes. So that's important, just from an inspirational point of view. Cool. So I'm going to quickly call out a couple of things that I've done here, and then we'll go back into the slide deck for a quick couple of slides. It's not scary, trust me. Couple of things that we've set up here, and I'm going to go back to the generally available designer, is what we've set up is we're using a managed account or managed identity. How many people use system managed identities in your environment? How many people know what a system managed identity is? Few people, cool. So what this system managed identity has the ability to do is if we go here, you'll see that we're hitting an endpoint. And then for the authentication, we're using managed identity. And it's the system assigned managed identity. Okay, so what does that actually look like? Well, we have this aptly named item called identity that we're going to quickly look at. And under here, we have system assigned status is on. Okay. And then we have the ability to assign an Azure role to that because we definitely want to assign full Azure role to that account, right? So we're just going to carte blanche give it Intune permissions, right? Everybody's good with that? I know my security team wouldn't be, and personally, I'm not going to do that in a production environment without doing read at least first to see what it's doing, understand how it all works. So if we go over and look in Entra, I got it right this time. Renaming's hard.
Azure. Azure.
So we go over here and we go to our applications. If we go to enterprise applications and we close, minimize this down and you go to minimize there. If we go here and we're going to search for MMS, it's not going to come up because filters are awesome. So here is our MMS blame. So when we've created that logic app, it's created an application in Entra ID. From there, we can then turn on that system managed account to allow us to sign in with that application. Simple, right? So we all know how to assign permissions to applications. We've had to do with config manager and a few other things where it's like, oh yeah, we'll just go and grant the permissions we need. Super simple. We just go to the permissions tab, right? And we just click the button that says add. Does anybody see the button to hit add? No? That's because it's not there. And that's by design. Because we're looking at an application, we're not looking at an application registration, which is two separate things. So to grant those permissions, what you need to do, because I'm lazy, awesome, is I went and put it into, yeah, it's in my slide deck. So what we can do is we can copy this and then we just open up the Azure command shell and we run it and it will go and assign those permissions. You can only do this via PowerShell via an API connection. You can't do it through the UX. By design, I don't know if it's a good design or bad design, but it has to be done programmatically. Everybody knows how to use the Azure shell, right? Yes, no, maybe. We've got a few yeses, but it's really simple. All we're doing is we're just hitting this button here. And we can just run PowerShell in the cloud. We don't have to load up our terminal session. We don't have to load up and make sure that we have the right version of the AZ module installed or any of that. It's all just there. Simple. That's what I love, is making my life simple. Cool. So then the other couple of things that I'm going to quickly step into here. All right. So the few things that I've glossed over really quickly here because I just wanted to get to the demo because it's way more interesting than this stuff. Let's be completely honest. So how did we connect the Logic app to the Event Hub? Oh, yeah, Logic app to the Event Hub. We went and grabbed the connection string primary key and we put that in there. One of the questions that I was asked at MMS was, can we use the managed identity? And the answer is yes, of course you can. I just didn't do it because I didn't play around with managed identity at that time. But you can use the connection string or you can use managed identity and grant that managed identity access to the event hub and pull that information out without any problems. Cool, easy. The other thing that is super important when you're working in Logic apps, name all of your steps. How many times do we have like HTTP or parse JSON and then it'll be parse JSON and then it'll be parse JSON and then it'll be, oh, hang on, no, it won't. It's send an email v2, send an email v2, 2, and 3, and 4. No, rename them. Put them something logical, something sensible that you understand. Because otherwise, when you're doing troubleshooting and triaging and looking at what's going on, you're going to get lost very quickly, and it's not fun. It's really not fun. And this is the comparison. As you can see, we can now see exactly what we're doing here, except for this 4H2 and 4HE, because I think I was named it before I took the screenshot. What are we doing the 4H next day? Come on, get better. Can we do splits and things like that? Of course we can. This is where we can use expressions. So let me quickly show you this one because it's a bit of a, well, yeah. Is if we go in here. Oh. Designer. And we're just going to grab a random item because we're not going to save it. Just go here. Action. Oh, and this takes a little bit of time to load up. Don't stress it. We'll get there. It's just, it likes to think, where you can just scroll down and you can see the information down the bottom. But if we go all, we're going to, we're just going to search for JSON. Data operation. Parse JSON. I like parsing JSON because it's fun. There's another demo that I will show you here in a second on that one as well. But what we can do here with expressions is this is literally using regular expressions. So if we go back to what we had in the demonstration, we wanted to split. So we split it based on the space. So we can go in here and just do split, round bracket, and then we select the item that we're working on. So as the example that we have is we're just saying items. In this scenario, let's have a quick look where we are. Yeah, we can do that. So we're going to do items. And then we have to give it a name of what are we stepping through? And we're going to say for each. Because we didn't rename it because we're bad. And then from there, because I'm going to keep referring back because I can't remember everything. You have to put in the underscore there, otherwise it's unhappy. We're going to do operation. And then we're going to split on a space because that's what we need to do. And then we're going to select the first one. And we click OK. So what we're actually doing there is we're saying for each item on our operation day, split it if there's a space in there, and then grab the first one. So in this scenario, we're saying we want to grab what's it actually doing on the operational day. As an example, but you can use that split or you can use those scenarios and expressions for other tasks. Just wanted to call that out because it's interesting. The other one that I want to call out here is we're parsing these JSON objects as the result of a task occurring. I'm just going to quickly open up another book because it's going to be easier. How are we going to time, Greg?
Oh, yeah, you got 20 minutes, 19 minutes.
Cool. Just want to make sure I don't run over. I will. All right, so in here we go run history. And we're going to grab our JSON object. So when you're creating this content, you need to be able to provide a representation of the JSON object that you're going to use, right? But you can't get that until you execute. So it's chicken and egg. So what you do is you just, in the schema, for the first time you run it, just put curly braces top and bottom, open, close, and it'll just go, oh, okay, my schema is everything. And then you go to the run history and get the output and then go and update it. Easy, right? So one thing that I want to call out that's super annoying but important to call out is if we grab the input, hang on, no, that's not the one I want. If we go here and we're going to grab our content, just this text here, because that's what we're actually converting. So it's content. Nothing. This is that's control. You'll see why in a second. So if I go back over here and I'm going to go and copy this text because that's what is needed and get the right context menu. Control C. And then we go here and we upload our sample schema. All right, cool. We've got that information, but what's happened is it's saying type string, which is correct. But what it's not allowing for is that you might have a null value on that string. So when we send audit logs, when we send any of this information, we will send you blank fields because we're not going to send you that data. So for example, category, if there is no category on the object that we're sending you, we're not going to send you category. But what that means is if you've not defined that in your schema, it's going to go, I don't know what's going on. So this is where you need to take a copy of this schema. It's super straightforward. We copy it and we go to code. We all love using VS Code, right? It's awesome. Hey, look, here's what I've done for Billion. Let's just do control N. So what you'll see here is we have type string. That's all we have. I'm going to flip over to my pre-canned created one that was there from previous because I'm lazy. And what I've actually added here, efficient, not lazy, sorry, efficient, is what I've added in here is type an array of string and null. So what that's saying is so long as it is either a string or a null, we will accept that we're all good and it won't throw errors and bars. Super, super, super important. If you don't do that, you're going to be sitting there and banging your head against the wall going, why is this not working? So, all good. So I'm just going to copy this string because I'm lazy, but all we've done is find and replace of string or type equals string to type array string none. Straightforward, right? Everybody understands what we're doing here? Cool. More nods than I expected. I'm happy to see. So that's done. That's good. Those are the two good examples I wanted to go through there. So then the next thing that we're going to do, let's go over here. Managed identity, we've spoken about that, we've done the demo on that. If you don't have the right permissions assigned to the account, it will tell you that you don't have the right permissions assigned. And I love this technology, but I also loathe the fact that you need so much verbosity and you need to have Zoom. So I'm just going to zoom over here and you can see we're missing the ability or the application that we're running, which is the ms_blame account, doesn't have these scopes. So you need to then go and assign those scopes. So certain scenarios when you run it, you won't have it on by default. You need to go and get it, go and add that permission, same as the code we used earlier, just change the name of it. Simple, right?
It's pretty cool that it tells you what you don't have.
Agreed.
Most of the time, it's just like you don't have access to that. Cool.
Correct.
What do I need?
Graph is getting a lot better at that. I must sit there and be very positive around that. Graph is getting a whole heap better about that. What else have we got in here? Oh yeah, we've talked about that joke. So this is the AZ command line because I like AZ because it's easy and I can just paste it into the UX. But then also here's the using Microsoft Graph and you can actually then just do multiples because this one here you can only do one at a time. But this one here you can put both in there without any problems and it will go and handle it for you. Sandy thought this was better than the one I had in there, so she added it without telling me. I'm good with that. So this is what success looks like. Happy days, cool. We're back to another demo. Okay, well, have we stopped demos? No. So this one here is actually more conceptual and one that I think is way more interesting. But every time I talk to people about it and I am so excited about it, they all just sit there and go, I understand what you're saying, Steve, but it's just, why would you? I'm like, all right, that's fine. But there are scenarios for this, so this is why we're talking about it. So this one here, we're connecting into the operational log, or as I call it, the device registration log. So what we're saying is we're going to capture this operational log and we're going to go and do action based upon that. So what does that actually look like? Well, let's go to our other blade. Give me a second while I change what we're running here. If we go run history. Oh, goody, we've had a lot of fails. That's fun. We can do some on-the-spot triaging. So what it actually looks like if we go here, if we go show raw output, what do we got in here? Ooh, this is me registering my new Mac last night. So you can see here we've registered a Mac OS. We have our Intune device ID, our Intune account ID, Intune user ID, AAD device ID. All of this information means that we can go and do action on that device when it's registered in your tenant. We also have, somewhere in here at the UPM, but we have the user ID as well. Nope, this one doesn't have user ID. That's okay. But what we're capturing there, and let me go and grab one that's a little bit more near and dear to everybody's heart. I think this one should have it. I should really know which one's which, but I shouldn't have them. iOS, iOS is cool, and And we have Android. We can capture that information. Let's go and grab something here. Now we've got Windows. But all of these are operational name of enrollment. So it's a very simple operational name. The one that you want to see that's actually really cool is the ESP enrollment. So everybody's using ESP with their autopilot today, right? I assume that's a big emphatic yes, Steve. Of course, we're using it. What this allows you to do, if we can find the right one, is with the ESP enrollment, we have the ability to see where it's up to centrally in an auditable way that we can perform action on within 5 minutes of it occurring. So I'm just going to bounce around a little bit. Just bear with me while I do this, because it's a hidden one, but it is really cool. Try this. Here we go. We have an ESP enrollment. So here, anybody see all the cool stuff that we're seeing here? Like, is autopilot true? Yes. Awesome. Is during ESP? That will come back as a 1 if it's still in ESP. If it's 0, that means it's completed. Where is the one that Oh, it's not bad. What I'm looking for is it actually will then put the message in here. So obviously we haven't gone to the desktop, but you get a confirmation the user has made it to the desktop. So then you can do an action like, I don't know, say, assign all of the applications you don't want installed during the out-of-box experience. That will pop up in the once the user is signed into the computer. So you have a consistent build time. Or the other scenario that I've been discussing recently is, all right, so how many people here use autopilot pre-provisioning? Like London? Couple of people. I'm impressed. There's only a couple of people. So why I'm asking if you're using autopilot pre-provisioning is one of the gaps that occurs with autopilot pre-provisioning is if you have a compliance policy assigned, it applies when the user or when that device goes through that out-of-box experience the first time. So we hit a Windows key 5 times and it's gone and pulled down the compliance policy, and these guys are sitting here and nodding their head to go, oh, I know where this guy's going. But you can't get compliant until that user signs into the computer, because BitLocker doesn't run until the user signs into the computer, because it has to be tied to the user account so they have access to the BitLocker key. And logic, right? Smart. So why wouldn't you use something like this to say, well, it's now in the user ESP status, or it's hit the desktop, and now I'm going to drop it into the group that gives you the compliance policy.
Like a cool feature to build into the UI in Intune.
It would be nice, but it's not there today, and this is how and doing things like this and demonstrating things like this is where you're going to influence the product group to put features like this into the product. Very honestly, because this is an edge case, but if you sit there and tell us, well, everybody in the room's having this issue, we're then going to have a better story to tell when we go and try and influence that. But that's how you get around the problem, right? Cheap, easy, and it gets you past that scenario. Oh, hang on, I can't do that. But what it also gives you is the ability, if somebody goes and registers a device because you've got enrollment turned on and you're tracking all your enrollments, if they enroll it as a personal device, you can send them an email going, hey, why are you enrolling personal devices? Or
Default in Windows.
well, I know. And nobody wants to see error code 13. Unsupported operating system. quite entertaining, but that's the error message you get if you change the registration requirement. It's 13 or 14. Anyway, it gives you the message saying unsupported OS version. And it's like, but I'm running Windows Enterprise. And it's like, no, it's unsupported because you're not allowed to register it because your organization has said that it's unsupported. That easy, right? Everybody understands what those random error messages. Cool. So does this make sense logically what we're doing here? What I've set up in my sorting hat, because I like doing crazy stuff, is we've gone and set up a process that, depending on the user that signs into that device, because we're going off and we're getting the device object, we're finding out all of the information about it. But then we go in and we're going to look at an enrollment, and we're saying, all right, dependent upon that Intune user ID, we're going to get all the groups of that member, that user is in. And then we're going to go and check. Are they a contact center staff member, or are they part of my executive team? If they're part of either of those groups, I'm going to automatically put that device that they've registered and enrolled into my team into a special group. Okay, that's pretty cool. We're sitting there and saying we're just going to segment those computers out, right? So let's go to the executive team stream. So we expand that out and we go, all right, cool. That equals this GUID, happy days. And let's see if we can zoom this out a little bit. And we're stepping through and saying, well, yeah, we need to make sure that it's there or not. And we're like, all right, we've dropped it into the, because I like doing graphicals, we've dropped it into the group and we've done that, right? We've got the executive device group. But we will now want to target it based on the OS version, because I don't want to sit there and have that high level granularity. We want fine grain and saying, I want to know my executive Mac OS devices. I want to know my executive Androids, et cetera, et cetera. So then you can just go in here and I'll go and drop it into a group for you. Cool, right? So, are there any questions? Because I know I'm going to get wound up in a minute or two.
Are you sharing the logic app?
I can. I haven't, but I can. I'll put it in the slide. I'll put a link in the slide deck. But what you can do is you can export and import. We can go back here, go to overview. You have the ability to export it somewhere.
Code view, I think.
Yeah, I think code view, and then you're going to have to paste it in there and you're going to run into a whole heap of errors. It's going to throw messages and things like that. But that's the only way you can share in the consumption space. If you go to the full-fledged, pay $600 a month that I'm not willing to spend of my hard-earned cash, then you can do a whole heap more stuff around the CI/CD pipelines associated with Logic Apps. But as a proof of concept, this is all there, and you can go and just play and do to your heart's content for $20 a month. Does that all make sense? Did I confuse everybody? Have I inspired you to go and play with this stuff? I think that's the bigger question. Yeah. That's really good to hear. Cool. All right, 2 minutes to spare.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen. Jared,